The first thing people said when they saw Daniel was that he didn't belong. Born into a wealthy white family that prided itself on their reputation, traditions, and pure lineage, Daniel was always treated like the black sheep, not because of failure, but because of his heart. He was gentle where his brothers were cruel, thoughtful where his sisters were calculating, and worst of all, he didn't share their obsession with money and status. From a young age, Daniel was reminded that his worth meant nothing without the family's approval. His father would tell him during their stiff dinners, "Our name, Daniel, is all that matters. Remember that before you let your heart drag you to ruin." But Daniel's heart did drag him, not into ruin, but into the kitchen. Her name was Emily, the maid, a young black woman with soft eyes, skin like polished mahogany, and a quiet strength that made even the cold walls of the mansion seem warmer when she passed by. Daniel noticed her long before he admitted it, watching how she endured the cutting remarks from his sisters, how she lowered her head when guests sneered at her presence, how she carried trays heavier than she should have to bear. But it was not pity that drew him to her. It was admiration. She was everything his family was not: kind, resilient, real. Still, for years, Daniel said nothing. He buried his feelings, choosing silence over conflict. His family already treated him like an outsider, and to confess love for a maid, let alone a black woman, would ignite war. That war came anyway. One night, his father announced during a glittering banquet that Daniel would be married, not for love, but for alliance. The bride-to-be was the daughter of a powerful family, their union promising wealth and prestige. The announcement landed like chains on Daniel's chest. His mother smiled coldly. His sisters whispered with excitement. His brothers patted his shoulder as if celebrating a business deal. Nobody asked him what he wanted. Nobody ever did. But inside Daniel, something snapped. For years, he had bent beneath his family's will. For years, he had played the part of the obedient son. Now, he decided he would no longer bend. That night, he walked into the kitchen. Emily was there, wiping down the counters, her hands tired but graceful. When she looked up, Daniel's voice shook with the weight of his decision. "Emily, marry me." Her cloth stilled. Her dark eyes widened. She searched his face for a trace of mockery, but found only fire. "You don't mean that," she whispered, her voice cautious, trembling. "I've never met anything more," Daniel said. "They want me to marry for power. I'd rather marry for love. And if it brings shame to this family, then let shame be my revenge." Emily's heart pounded. For years, she had hidden her own secret feelings, but the fear of rejection, of humiliation, had silenced her. Now the man she thought untouchable was standing before her, offering not just love, but defiance. Still, she hesitated. "Your family will never forgive you. They will despise me. They will despise us both." Daniel stepped closer, lowering his voice as though sharing a secret with the night itself. "They already despise me. And as for you, let the world know you are my wife. Let them choke on it." And so, Daniel made his choice. The wedding was not a grand affair with roses and chandeliers. It was held in secret, in a small chapel at the edge of the city. Emily wore a simple white dress borrowed from a kind neighbor, her beauty outshining the cloth itself. Daniel wore a plain black suit, stripped of family crests or pride. But what mattered was not the splendor, it was the vow. "I marry you," Daniel whispered as he slipped the ring onto her finger. "Not to bind you to me, but to free myself with you." Emily's tears glistened as she repeated her promise. They kissed, sealing their rebellion with love. The very next morning, Daniel walked into his family's grand dining room, hand in hand with Emily. The chandeliers glittered above. His father sat at the head of the table, newspaper in hand. His mother sipped her tea, his sisters adjusting their pearls. And then silence fell. Every eye turned to Emily, to her dress, to the ring, to the undeniable truth that burned in Daniel's defiant eyes. "My wife," Daniel said, his voice steady. "Her name is Emily." His father's newspaper dropped to the floor. His sisters gasped. His brothers nearly choked on their wine. And in that silence, Daniel smiled for the first time in years, because for the first time in his life, he had chosen his own path. But he did not yet know. The storm had only begun. The moment Daniel declared Amelie as his wife, the room trembled, not from earthquakes or storms, but from the violent silence of his family's rage. His mother's teacup clinked against the saucer as her hand shook, though her face stayed calm, lips stretched into a smile so sharp it could cut glass. "Daniel," she said slowly, her voice dripping venom, "tell me this is some cruel joke." "It is no joke," Daniel answered, squeezing Amelie's hand. "She is my wife. From this day, she is part of this family." The reaction came like thunder. His eldest brother, Charles, slammed his fist on the table, rattling silver spoons. "You dare humiliate us? A maid, a black maid. Have you lost all sense?" His sisters sneered in unison, whispering cruel words, "Shameless, filthy, she'll ruin our name." But the most terrifying was his father. The old man rose slowly, his face red with restrained fury, his voice, low and heavy, carried across the room like a curse. "You are no son of mine." Amelie's breath caught. Daniel's grip on her tightened. "Then so be it," Daniel replied. "I'd rather be no son of yours than remain a prisoner to your pride." The room erupted. His father roared for the guards. Amelie was shoved aside, her wrist almost wrenched, but Daniel pulled her back, shielding her with his own body. "Touch her," he growled, "and I swear I'll burn this house to the ground." For the first time, the servants in the shadows dared to lift their heads. They had long endured the cruelty of the family, but now one man, one of their own blood, was standing against them. Their eyes burned with quiet admiration for Daniel, even as they remained silent. The confrontation ended with Daniel dragging Amelie out, their footsteps echoing through the marble halls. Behind them, his father's final words thundered like a curse. "You will regret this day. I will strip you of everything, your inheritance, your home, your name." And so it was done. Within hours, Daniel was cut off, his bank accounts frozen, his properties locked, his friends instructed to sever ties. His mother spread whispers in the city, painting him a disgrace. His father sent letters to business allies, forbidding them from offering Daniel any opportunity. By the end of the week, Daniel and Amelie stood at the edge of the city with nothing but a single suitcase and their wedding bands. Amelie turned to him, her voice trembling. "You gave up everything for me. Do you regret it?" Daniel looked into her eyes, those eyes that had given him warmth in a house of ice. "I regret nothing. They think they've broken me. But Amelie," his voice grew darker, steady with determination, "they've only freed me." Amelie nodded, her strength returning. If love was their only wealth, then they would build an empire with it. But survival was not easy. They rented a tiny room in the poorest quarter of the city. Gone were the chandeliers, the servants, the banquets. Now they shared a single wooden bed, ate bread and broth, and endured the scorn of those who recognized them. Daniel took odd jobs, loading crates at the harbor, sweeping floors, hauling stones, while Amelie cleaned other houses during the day. Yet every night, when they returned to each other, they smiled. For the first time in Daniel's life, he tasted freedom. For the first time in Amelie's life, she felt cherished. But while love filled their home, hatred grew in the mansion Daniel had left behind. His sisters gossiped about ways to ruin him further. His brothers laughed at the thought of him working as a common laborer. And his father was not content with Daniel's downfall. No, he wanted humiliation. At a grand family gathering, his father raised his glass and announced, "My son married a servant. He betrayed his blood. But mark my words, he will come crawling back. He will beg." The guests laughed, their jeweled hands clapping, their voices echoing through the gilded halls. But Daniel did not crawl. He rose. One evening, after another exhausting day at the harbor, Daniel sat with Amelie in their small room. He was bruised, his palms torn from lifting cargo. Amelie tended his wounds, whispering encouragement. And in that fragile, flickering moment, Daniel spoke words that would change their lives forever. "Amelie, I will not let them win. I will not let them laugh at us. One day, I will rise so high that they will bow their heads in shame. And when that day comes," his eyes glowed with fire, "I will stand before them, with you at my side, and they will choke on the name they tried to erase." Emily touched his cheek gently. Then we will rise together. Your dream is mine now too. Outside, the city glittered with wealth and power that seemed out of reach. But in that small, dim room, something brighter was born, resolve. Because Daniel was no longer the obedient son. He was a man with nothing to lose, and that made him dangerous. And his family had no idea. The revenge had only just begun. Daniel and Emily's new life was not made of silk or gold. It was made of blistered hands, sweat, and tears. Each dawn, Daniel rose before the sun, his muscles aching from labor at the harbor. He carried sacks twice his weight, his clothes soaked in salt water, his body bruised by careless supervisors who mocked his fall from wealth. The great Daniel, they sneered, reduced to a mule. Emily, too, bore her burden. She cleaned houses where women in fine lace whispered behind her back. Look at her, once a maid, always a maid. Even as a wife, she scrubs floors. Yet, when she returned to their small room, Daniel saw no shame in her, only strength. At night, they dreamed together. Daniel scribbled business plans by candlelight, while Emily stretched every coin to feed them. They were poor, but they were partners. Their love was their shield, and their hunger their weapon. But fate was not done testing them. One stormy evening, Daniel returned home drenched, his shirt torn from a fight at the harbor. Emily rushed to him, horrified. Daniel, what happened? His jaw tightened. Charles's men. They followed me. My own brother sent thugs to remind me where I belong. Emily trembled, but Daniel only smiled grimly. Good. If they fear me enough to strike, then they know I am not broken. Emily kissed his wounds, whispering, One day they will kneel. I believe in you. The next day, Daniel made a choice. He would no longer live as prey. He would fight. He saved every coin, refusing to spend on comfort. He bought books on trade, finance, and law from street vendors. He sought mentors in the unlikeliest places, an old dockmaster who knew the secrets of shipping routes, a poor merchant who once held an empire, a banker disgraced for standing against Daniel's father. These broken men became Daniel's teachers, sharpening his mind like a blade. Emily stood beside him, her presence a constant fire. While others doubted, she reminded him, The world may see a servant in me, but you see more, and I see more in you. Months turned to years. Slowly, Daniel built a network. He started small, trading goods at the harbor, smuggling what others overlooked, striking deals where wealthy merchants refused to tread. With Emily's wisdom in managing their scarce resources, their coins grew. But success brought danger. One evening, as Daniel finalized a trade deal in a dim tavern, a messenger burst in, his face pale with fear. Daniel, your room, your wife, it's on fire. Daniel's heart stopped. He raced through the streets, smoke rising in the distance. Their small home was engulfed in flames. Emily stood outside, coughing, clutching a burnt cloth bundle, their savings. She had risked her life to save it. Daniel embraced her, relief flooding his chest. But deep inside, rage burned hotter than the fire. This was no accident. This was his family's hand again. That night, as the embers died, Daniel made a vow. He kissed Emily's soot-stained forehead and whispered, They think fire will destroy me, but fire only forges steel. I swear to you, Emily, I will not stop until I rise above them all. Emily's eyes glowed, fierce and unyielding. Then I will rise with you. From that moment, Daniel became relentless. He worked longer hours, made riskier deals, and grew bolder. Emily, though weary, encouraged him every step. They faced betrayal from false allies, loss of friends who sold them out for coins, and endless whispers of shame. But they endured. One night, after sealing his first major trade route deal, Daniel returned to Emily with gold coins glittering in his palm. It begins, he told her. Emily wept with joy, holding him close. Their poverty was ending, but the war with his family was just beginning. Because across the city, in the great mansion, Daniel's father sat in the candlelit hall, listening to whispers from his spies. Your son is rising, they warned. The old man's jaw tightened, his eyes full of fury. Then we will crush him again. He may build from the dirt, but he will never outgrow his blood. What he didn't know was that Daniel no longer fought for pride alone. He fought for Emily, for the love that his family mocked. And a man who fights for love is far more dangerous than a man who fights for wealth. The battle lines were drawn, and Daniel was ready. The city had laughed when Daniel was cast out. They mocked him, whispered behind his back, called him the foolish son who married a maid. But within a few years, those same streets began to murmur a different name, Daniel the traitor. He started small, yes, but Daniel had the one thing his rich family didn't: hunger. He saw opportunities where others only saw dirt. Where the wealthy refused to trade with fishermen, Daniel struck deals. Where merchants ignored poor farmers, Daniel gave them fair prices and loyalty. Slowly, coins flowed to his hands. Emily was his secret strength. While Daniel dealt at the docks, she managed their growing fortune with razor precision. She learned numbers as if born to them, teaching herself to read every contract Daniel brought home. She noticed details others missed. "Daniel," she once said, tapping a parchment, "they've hidden a clause here. If you sign, you'll lose your profits." He tore the deal at once. She had saved him. They became a team so unbreakable that even their enemies noticed. But Daniel's rise wasn't without blood. Rival traders tried to sabotage him. Shipments went missing. Laborers were bribed to abandon him. Once, a gang ambushed him in an alley. Yet he fought back like a man possessed, returning home bruised, but alive. Emily stitched his wounds with trembling hands, whispering, "They can break your body, but they can't break what burns inside you." Within 5 years, Daniel was no longer just surviving. He was thriving. He bought his first ship, painted black with golden sails that caught every eye at the harbor. Crowds gathered as it departed on its maiden voyage, whispers following him. "That's Daniel, the abandoned son, and now a shipowner." His father heard the news at a dinner table filled with nobles. He slammed his goblet so hard the wine spilled across the table. "He is nothing, nothing but a bastard who spat on our name." But deep in his heart, he feared. For Daniel was becoming what no one expected, a threat. And still, Daniel's love for Emily burned. He didn't buy her jewelry or silks, no. He bought her books. He built her a study, filled with parchment and ink. "You are more than what they call you," he told her. "You are my partner, my equal, my queen." She kissed him with tears in her eyes, knowing no man of wealth had ever spoken to her like that. Yet wealth brings enemies, and soon, the war began openly. Daniel's brother Charles, furious at Daniel's growing empire, ordered his allies to boycott him. Ships were denied docking rights. Markets closed their gates. Bankers refused loans. For a moment, Daniel's empire trembled. But Daniel did what his family never could. He turned to the people. He built schools for fishermen's children. He gave poor farmers fair prices when others robbed them. He offered jobs to dock workers who had been tossed aside. And in return, the people became his shield. When merchants tried to shut him out, crowds filled the harbor, chanting, "Daniel, Daniel, Daniel." Emily stood at his side that day, her dark skin glowing under the sun, her head held high. Once a maid, now she was seen as the lady of the harbor. People bowed to her as much as to him. Still, danger stalked them. One night, as Daniel signed a deal with foreign traders, a messenger stormed in, gasping, "They've poisoned the wine meant for you." Daniel froze. His enemies were no longer just trying to ruin him. They wanted him dead. Emily gripped his hand. "We must be careful. Wealth is a crown of thorns." But Daniel only smiled, eyes blazing. "Then let them come. Every strike only makes me stronger." His enemies had underestimated him. Because Daniel didn't just want wealth, he wanted revenge. And now, he had enough power to begin. One evening, dressed in fine but modest clothes, Daniel rode through the gates of the mansion he was once thrown out of. His father's servants froze, staring in shock. The boy who had left with nothing now returned in a golden carriage, flanked by guards loyal to him. He entered the hall, Emily walking beside him, radiant in emerald green silk that matched the fire in her eyes. Gasps filled the air. The maid they once spat on looked like a queen. His father rose, trembling with fury. "You dare enter my house." Daniel's voice cut through the silence like a blade. I left this house with nothing but shame. I return with gold, ships, and power greater than yours. And I bring the woman you despised, my wife, my strength, my revenge. The hall trembled with whispers. For the first time, the powerful old man had no words. But Daniel wasn't done yet. This was only the beginning of his revenge. The great hall was silent. All eyes locked on Daniel, the son once abandoned, now a man of power. His father's hands trembled on the arm of his chair, while Charles, his arrogant brother, sneered like a cornered wolf. Amelie stood tall beside Daniel, her emerald gown glowing under the chandelier. Once mocked as a maid, she now carried the aura of a queen. Her gaze swept across the room, meeting the shocked stares of the nobles who once spat on her. Daniel, his father growled, voice heavy with pride turned to venom. You think gold makes you my equal? You are still a stain on this family. Daniel's lips curved into a cold smile. No, father, I am not your equal. I have surpassed you. He raised a hand, and at once, guards entered the hall. His guards, not the family's. They carried ledgers, scrolls, and maps. Daniel laid them on the table before the gathered nobles. These, he declared, are the debts your house owes. For years, you lived fat on borrowed coin. Quietly, I bought those debts. Today, this mansion, these lands, even your ships, they belong to me. Gasps erupted. His father's face drained of blood. Charles lunged forward, shouting lies. But Daniel threw a sealed contract onto the table, stamped with the king's own seal. The nobles began whispering, shifting away from Charles and his father, their loyalty slipping like sand. Amelie's voice, calm yet commanding, cut through the chaos. You cast him out. You mocked him for loving me. But it is I who stood by him, and it is with me he built this empire. Look well, for the maid you despised is now mistress of all you lost. The words hit like thunder. For the first time, Amelie was not just beside Daniel. She was his weapon. His father slumped back, defeated, while Charles's rage boiled over. I will never bow to you, he spat. He grabbed a dagger from the table and rushed forward, eyes wild. The hall erupted in screams, but Daniel did not flinch. With the swiftness of a man sharpened by years of survival, he caught Charles's wrist mid-strike. The dagger clattered to the floor. Guards pinned Charles down as Daniel leaned close, his voice ice. You tried to kill me once with your silence. Now you try with your hands. Hear me, brother. I will not stain my hands with your blood. You will live. And you will live knowing the maid you spat on now sits on the throne of everything you once called yours. Charles's scream of rage echoed as they dragged him away. Daniel turned to his father one last time. When you cast me out, you thought you buried me. But I was a seed. Today, I rise taller than your pride could ever reach. With that, Daniel extended his arm to Amelie. Together, they walked out of the mansion, not as beggars, not as exiles, but as rulers. The very streets that once mocked them now bowed as they passed, showering them with cheers. Daniel, Amelie, Daniel, Amelie. The chant grew, rising into the night sky. Amelie leaned close, whispering softly, We have everything now. But tell me, was it worth the pain? Daniel's eyes softened as he gazed at her. It wasn't wealth or revenge that saved me. It was you. Without you, I would still be lost. With you, I have conquered not just them, but life itself. She smiled, tears glistening in her eyes, and kissed him beneath the glow of the moon. And so, the abandoned son and the despised maid became legends, not because of riches alone, but because love and resilience turned their wounds into weapons and their suffering into a crown. The family that cast them out crumbled in shame. But Daniel and Amelie rose as a symbol of triumph, proving that those the world rejects often return to rule it. And their names live forever in whispers of power, revenge, and love.